collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up on the programme this week, the House Environment Committee calls for the immediate implementation of a ban on water sports at Polemidia Dam in the Limassol district because of the danger to public health due to the highly polluted water.
This is the reason why the quality of the water there is extremely bad. There is chemical pollution and there are microorganisms there that you don't want to have.
And we'll look in greater depth at the various scenarios outlined in European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker's white paper on the future of Europe.
Do we want to ditch the sort of environmental protection that the European Union has? Do we really want to ditch the safety in foodstuffs? Do we really want to ditch, our efforts to coordinate consumer protection in the European Union? Maybe yes, but maybe not. And I'm sure that you will find some people who will say yes, it's not really terribly important.
In the news this week was the fact that water sport activities at Polemidia Dam, according to the House Environment Committee, should be stopped forthwith. Actually, there is already a ban on water sports, but they are apparently still going ahead. What's the problem? The problem, apparently, is the quality of the water in the dam and the danger it poses to public health. Bambos Theobemptou is a former Environment Commissioner of Cyprus and now a Member of Parliament. He's on that committee. He joins us now. Bambos, what actually is the problem at Polemidia Dam?
Polemidia Dam is about a kilometre away from the largest landfill in Cyprus, which is the Vadi landfill, which means that when it rains, the water from the rain will seep through all the rubbish in the Vadi landfill, get into the river, and then end up in the Polemidia Dam. In addition to this, up in Vadi, we also have a place where sewage is dumped. So it's not only the rainwater, it's the sewage as well. This is the reason why anytime you go there, even in the summer, you see water coming into the dam. So that dam has what ends up from the sewage and what you get through the landfill from the rainwater. This is the reason why the quality of the water there is extremely bad. There is chemical pollution and there are microorganisms there that you don't want to have.
What happens to the water in the Polemidia Dam? I mean, we have so many dams in Cyprus, most of which are used for agricultural purposes. Is this water used for that as well?
Some of the water is used, but there is concern on how people use this water. I must say, though, that the biggest problem with regards to pollution, there's nothing you can do. But if you have, for instance, microorganisms and any pathogenic organisms there, most of these are on the surface of the water. So if you consider the fact that the water for the plants is taken almost from the bottom of the dam, that makes the problem a little bit easier. But still, it's not good. And even the Water Development Department characterizes that the situation of the water is bad.
But as far as I understood it, the area was actually fenced off to prevent people using it for water skiing and among other things, and yet they're still going ahead and doing it. So why aren't they being stopped?
What the Water Development Department did was to tell them you're not allowed to use this. So they said this in order to get off them the responsibility, but they didn't do anything to stop them. That is the point at this point. They didn't want to cause any trouble, I don't know why, but they didn't stop them. They said you're not allowed to do this, but they did nothing to prevent it.
So what's going to happen now?
I don't know. The committee asked the water ski to stop. We are Cyprus Sports Federation to remove them from there. And what is going to happen next, I don't know. It's something that remains to be seen. But I need to say also that the Cyprus Sports Federation, together with the Water Development Department, they are working on a set of regulations, of rules and regulations, to allow certain sports to occur in the water tap. So they might move them to a place where we don't have such problems with the water quality.
And that is the bottom line, isn't it? What can be done to clean up the water quality? I thought that although we still have landfills, there were certain regulations about how those landfills work. And if they're leaching chemicals and other pollutants into the soil and therefore into the water, that's a huge problem, isn't it?
It is a huge problem. So if this is what happens to the surface water, imagine how the situation is in the groundwater. This is the case for most of the landfills. This is one of the reasons why you want to stop using landfills.
Bambos, if there are landfills I've seen in Northern Europe, for example, which, although they are landfills, all of these types of problems are bypassed by the methodology used in the landfill. Are we just still in Cyprus chucking things and then covering them over?
The methodology that you described is part of the Directive 31/1999 of the European Union, and it appears in the Cyprus legislation as well. But this is for new landfills. If you consider the fact that Vadi and Kochadis were started in the 1990s, they didn't do anything. It's like Maratunda, Yamarinuda, we never did these things when the landfill was started. So what we are doing now is anything new is built on the regulations, the proper regulations for running a landfill. But from that point onwards, we secured money to do a proper restoration of the landfill. That is seal it, prevent rainwater from entering the landfill, collect all the leachate from drills, you drill wells into the landfill, then you pump it up, then you treat it so that you prevent it from polluting the groundwater. This will cost a lot of money and it will take years to do. And that is the reason why I don't see soon anything done about the quality of the water in the Polemidia dam.
Goodness me, bad news indeed for our environment. Bambos Theobemtou, thanks very much for joining me.
Pleasure, thank you.
And apologies for the quality of that interview, but it was a topic that I thought it was important to cover this week.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Dominating the headlines in Cyprus this week has been the deal between the government and the state hospitals' nurses' unions to give them, finally, the upgrade that they were hoping for to do with their academic qualifications. But unsurprisingly, it has sparked unrest among various other healthcare professional groups who are now demanding to be treated equally. The Pan-Cyprian Association of Physiotherapists said earlier this week that the decision, which excludes their speciality, was unfair, and similar arguments were made by radiologist technicians. It's also caused concern for the chairman of the Fiscal Council, which consults the government on budgetary matters. He said he was concerned about pressure on public finances caused by the increase in demands by interest groups in the run-up to presidential elections next year. Dimitris Georgiades, who chairs that body, which was set up to help avoid a new fiscal derailment, said it was premature to express an informed opinion on the deal with the nurses' unions, but, he said, personally this phenomenon is for me a cause of concern, and I am sure it is for many others as well. Finance Minister Haris Georgiades, meanwhile, has been defending the move. He said that dividing nurses into scientific and non-scientific staff in roughly equal proportion and introducing a rotating 8-hour shift schedule are the key measures that will keep the cost of the government's deal with the nurses in check. Equally important, he said, was the fact that the new recruits from now on will not hold civil servant status. And news this week that thousands of teachers from Greece are expected to take the upcoming exams for places as teachers in Cyprus state schools, while 1 in 4 of those on the current waiting list system is Greek. According to the Greek daily Ethnos, between 12,000 and 13,000 Greek educators are already enrolled on the Cypriot Education Service Commission's waiting lists, while many are preparing to take the first written exams between September and December as per the new teacher appointment system, which will be based on merit. Up to now, teachers are appointed according to the waiting lists, with positions given to those who've been on the waiting list the longest. The legislation passed last year provides that from September 2018 until August in 2027, 50% of appointments will be made from the waiting lists and 50% according to the new system. From September 2027, all appointments will be based on merit. Wednesday, the 8th of March, was, of course, International Women's Day, and hundreds of women from Cyprus, from both sides of the divide, held a peace march. They set off from different starting points in the north and the south, marched to the buffer zone, and then a bicommunal event was organised by around 40 organisations and groups to mark International Women's Day. They sang songs, read poems, and danced together, and a joint declaration was read out focusing on UN Security Council Resolution 1325, which reaffirms that peace cannot be maintained without the active participation of women in the decision-making processes. The declaration also said, referring to labour exploitation and violence in the family and workplace, among others, it is of paramount importance to raise our voices against all of these. They urged the two leaders in Cyprus to remain focused on the negotiation process and to resist what they termed the destructive rhetoric of forces that promote dichotomous thinking and actions, hindering the peace process.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
On last week's programme, we started discussing the European Commission's White Paper on the future of Europe, Avenues for Unity for the EU at 27. Well, we spoke to the head of the EU Commission representation here in Cyprus, George Markopouliotis, and concentrated very much on the first of the 5 scenarios that are set out in that White Paper. Each of them offers a glimpse into the potential state of the Union by 2025. Last week we discussed Scenario 1, Carrying On, which was focusing on delivering positive reform in the spirit of the Commission's New Start for Europe from 2014 and of the Bratislava Declaration, which was agreed by all 27 member states in 2016. This week we're going to concentrate on the other 4 scenaria. And as Mr. Marco Polliodis points out, Europe is changing.
Europe in the 1900s represented 1/4 of the world population. 1/4, so 1 every 4 people on the planet was European. Today, 150 years later, I mean by 2060 is the estimation, but I mean roughly 150 years later, we're less than 4%. We will be less than 4% of the world population. So we were 1 in 4 150 years ago. We will be 1 in 25 today. It's not so bad in terms of economic share, because still Europe represents one of the most privileged, one of the most prosperous, one of the most safe blocks in the world. We have around 1/4 of the world GDP. But all this, suggests this dramatic change in which even the largest European country, I mean today it's Germany, probably will be Germany over the next few decades, will not have more than 1% of the world's population.
But that brings us to scenario number 2, which is this idea of concentrating on the single market.
Exactly.
Now, how does Donald Trump's policy on trade impact on that idea? Is this Europe sort of gathering itself inside and looking to its own members for the growth and the prosperity that comes from the economy?
No, I don't think it's that. First of all, I mean, what will happen with the United States, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, they're still our biggest partner in terms of trade, and the same is valid for us with them. But when President Juncker says, well, I mean, it is an option to focus on the internal market, this is a reflection of the fact that Europe has difficulty to agree on a number of key policies, which basically are those policies that enhance the involvement of Europe in daily life. I mean, things like migration, and we have also discussed on previous occasions the difficulties, that existed about agreeing on the migration package. Now there is a discussion on defence, whether Europe should go ahead with defence, in the sense that, having sort of 27 different defence policies and utilization of different equipment, you obviously lose out on tremendous economies of scale and homogeneity vis-à-vis blocks like the United States of America or China or even Russia. So these difficulties exist. So one option, which, I mean, knowing President Juncker's background and his very strong commitment to Europe, one can safely assume that this is not his preferred option, despite the fact that we don't have a preferred option, which I'm sure that is something you're going to ask me later on, why we don't, and I will answer. The internal market angle is one that exists as a theoretical possibility. You lose out on a number of things, of course.
Okay, let's come to scenario number 3. Those who want more, do more.
Yes, there are some countries that want to have further integration, I mean, deeper, wider, more intense, and they're prepared to do it, and they're able to do it. So one question, which is the obvious question, is why should we stop them from doing so?
But it would be a bit odd, wouldn't it, if some did it but some didn't? Because particularly, again, on the migration issue and so on, you're going to end up with a 2-tier union, aren't you?
Well, this notion of allowing to people to go ahead faster than others doesn't mean that you necessarily need to exclude the others. Others can come on board when they want to and when they can. So it is not a question of creating a sort of watertight 2- or 3-tier Europe. It's the fact that you give the opportunity to those who want faster and further integration to do it earlier than others who might be coming along later on.
All right, and what about scenario 4, doing less more efficiently? What does he mean by that?
Scenario 4, doing less more efficiently. There are certain policies where European value added is manifest, and I think, people, ordinary citizens, but also governments and organized society, they can see that value added coming from Europe. There are other policy areas where people say, well, Europe shouldn't be really meddling with this. They shouldn't be involved in this. So one question would be, which needs to be answered, what if Europe were to concentrate on those things where there is a manifest value added by European intervention, and to ditch those policy areas where this value added is not manifest?
Can you give an example?
Well, it's difficult to give an example now, but I think this is why we're creating the discussion. There are, whatever I tell you, you will tell me, well, no, this is not right, because European value added is quite important there. And I think that this is a very interesting question that you put, because in a way it helps answer the question: is this what we really want? Do we really want to ditch things? Do we want to ditch the sort of environmental protection that the European Union has? Do we really want to ditch safety in foodstuffs? Do we really want to ditch, our efforts to coordinate consumer protection in the European Union? Maybe yes, but maybe not. And I'm sure that you will find some people who will say yes, it's not really terribly important.
When you say ditch it, you're talking about it being ditched as a central policy from the EU,
yes.
And then, in a sense, delegating that responsibility to member states.
Exactly.
Okay, and number 5, doing much more together.
Well, doing much more together, this is what I would call the sort of Europeanists or the federalists scenario, although the word federalist is not something that we use. Well, basically, which says that there is one way of overcoming the problems that Europe faces now, both in terms of decision making, but also in terms of area of activity, and that is to leap ahead and make Europe much more integrated very quickly. So that's
unlikely to happen, bearing in mind the scepticism of many EU states, particularly over the last couple of years, in terms of what responsibilities are abrogated to Brussels.
I think you're right. On the other hand, this is why we're starting this discussion. I mean, people, governments, organised interests in the good sense of the word, civil society, social partners and everything, should have not only the opportunity, but I think they also have to a certain extent the duty to say what they really want. If, Rosie, in this one, and the President said this, the form will be dictated by the content. It is not, some preconceived idea of what we want that is going to tell us how we should organise things. First, we have to decide what we really want from Europe, which are the policy areas, how we want to do it, and then we will decide which is the best form.
Okay, let's talk about what happens next, because his actual State of the Union speech, I think, is due in September, when these will have been discussed and somewhat clarified, presumably. But what are member states going to do between now and September in terms of discussing these different scenarios and putting forward their own views? How will those all be collaborated, if you like, in Brussels to see what is coming out of the paper?
Yes. Well, you're right. I mean, this is as the President said, President Juncker said, this is the beginning of a process. There is this paper, the white paper from the Commission in the Nature. People will have to, and this is why we're trying, and I'm grateful to you for the opportunity you give me. We want to explain this to people. We want to engage people. Just let me add in a bracket that President Juncker has also pledged that a number of other papers are going to come out, which will elaborate on a number of key aspects. For example, social Europe, because a lot of people are talking about social Europe, but there still is quite a long way to go. What about the economy? What about the future of economic and monetary union?
So he's going to put papers.
Defense? So he's going to put thematic papers, if I can call it this way, over the next few months, and certainly before September, when he will give his State of the Union speech in the European Parliament. And
will it be citizens or governments that are going to discuss these?
I think it's going to be both, and we want it to be both. I mean, already we have certain reactions. I mean, even today, Prime Minister Muscat, the President of the Council, is here in Cyprus. President Anastasiadis made some comments welcoming the beginning of this debate. But the President will actually talk about his vision in September, with a view to have a very consolidated discussion by heads of state and government in December this year. What is the ultimate goal of all this? I mean, as I say, this is a process, is that by June 2019, when we will have the European elections, the political parties in Europe, they have a view on this as to where we want to go. so that the election for the next President of the European Commission incorporates this element, incorporates the discussion on the debate on the future of Europe. And this can be taken on board by the political parties, so that when political parties, be it the Social Democrats or the Christian Democrats or the Liberals, put forward the programs, they will have to take a clean position as to what is the future of Europe that they have in mind, so that European citizens, when they vote in the European elections, and when subsequently the Parliament votes for a Spitzenkandidat, the key candidate for the presidency of the European Commission, all this is clarified and people know what they're voting for.
That is George Markopouliotis, the head of the European Commission representation in Cyprus, discussing the points raised by European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker in his white paper on the future of Europe, Avenues for Unity.
Listen online to the Cyprus News Digest on YouTube or at cyprusmail.libsyn.com. The latest program is uploaded every Friday, and if you missed one, you can catch up there.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.